It's Wednesday, March 19th. No deal. Ukraine and Russia launching attacks overnight after a call between the Kremlin and the White House ended with Russian President Vladimir Putin rejecting a ceasefire proposal.
Kudos to them for being resilient in a planned short duration flight now turning into a long duration.
Yeah, from 8 days to 9 months. It was longer than expected trip to space, but astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore are now finally back home on Earth.
What potential conflicts of interest you
What
sought
possible
to avoid?
conflict would you have?
Asset disclosure. Prime Minister Mark Carney being pressed to make his finances public before an election that could be coming soon.
One last purchase, Hudson Bay blanket would be great, because who knows when we'll see that again.
Searching for deals, shoppers flocking to Hudson's Bay stores, hoping for some great prices and to secure a piece of Canadian history. Stay with us, Canada. Your morning starts right now. Good morning, Canada, and welcome to Your Morning. I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake. I'm in for Lindsey Deluce as well this morning.
That's right, and I'm Winston C. in for Kelsey. And so as Anne-Marie just said, Lindsey and Kelsey are both off, so busy news day.
Yeah, it is a busy news day. We'll start with what happened overnight. Russia and Ukraine exchanging 175 prisoners each this morning after Russia rejected a U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. This morning, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is accusing Russia of targeting civilian infrastructure overnight, including a hospital. Both Russia and Ukraine launched attacks overnight. Putin has agreed to a 30-day pause in attacks on energy infrastructure while on that call with the U.S. president. Plus, the U.S. and Russia say they'll carry out negotiations on a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. The U.S. says peace talks will pick up again on Sunday in Saudi Arabia.
We didn't talk about aid, actually. We didn't talk about aid at all. We talked about a lot of things, but aid was never discussed. I'm a nationalist, but...
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump discussed his 2-hour marathon call with Putin on Fox News Tuesday night, saying the issue of U.S. military aid in Ukraine never came up. The Kremlin has called for an end to U.S. military assistance to Kyiv as part of any truce. Zelensky now wants his own call with Trump, saying he doesn't trust Putin. Ukraine had already agreed to a ceasefire deal that the U.S. is proposing. Well, astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore are getting used to life with gravity again now that they're finally back home on Earth.
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
Yeah, good reason to cheer. The crew's capsule splashed down near the coast of Florida after a 17-hour trip from the International Space Station. This marked the end of what was supposed to have been just an 8-day trip that stretched out into 9 months. Williams and Wilmore became stranded after the Boeing Starline spacecraft ran into what's being called technical problems. Well, now that they're back on Earth, the astronauts will spend the next few days in Houston. They'll be checked out by doctors, and after that, they will be able to reunite with their families and head home.
Here on your screen, we can see dolphins, actually, who want to come and play with Dragon.
Yeah, I bet they were curious. Among the first Earthlings to welcome Williams and Wilmore back to Earth, where you saw them there, this pod of dolphins. They were just swimming around the spacecraft as the crew was being picked up. NASA called them honorary members of the recovery team. Well, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney insists he is following the rules when it comes to handling his financial assets while in office.
There's a discussion with the Ethics Commissioner for certain screens around certain issues, and that's a process that is underway.
Prime Minister Carney facing questions again yesterday about disclosing his assets. To avoid conflict of interest, he has put his holdings into a blind trust, and that means he has no knowledge or control over how his portfolio is managed. The Prime Minister is also working with the Ethics Commissioner to release a summary of his finances within 120 days of taking office. The Conservatives say Carney should release this information faster because the election will likely be over by then. And Carney will host a meeting with the premiers on Friday. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau held his final meeting with the premiers last week, and there they talked about how to handle, well, of course, U.S. tariffs. This Friday's meeting with the new Prime Minister is expected to pick up where they left off. with talks focused on trade and strengthening Canada's economy. Prime Minister Carney will also be meeting with his advisory council on Canada-U.S. relations. That meeting happens today. Well, the City of Toronto is stepping up efforts to take on what it calls an unprecedented number of coyote attacks downtown. With more, here's CTV's Beth McDonnell.
There are dog walkers and owners in Fort York and Liberty Village so scared they carry sprays and alarms just in case a coyote attacks. Some believe the city has been too slow responding to a rash of incidents, and relocating the coyotes months ago would have made sense.
A lot less attacks, for sure, 100%, a lot less fear.
Bylaw officers have been patrolling high-risk areas, and now the city is ramping up its coyote action plan. A 7-member wildlife panel recommends the city hire a company to assess the nuisance coyotes and apply aversion techniques. That people continue aversion techniques with their bodies and voices, add resources to recondition animals, remove human food sources, repair fences, improve lighting and sight lines, and increase education.
At this point, they are making the coyotes more important than the residents.
Ruby Cooner is with the Coyote Safety Coalition. Her dog Amber was attacked and died. She says it's one of 70 negative interactions the group has documented since November. Cooner doesn't want coyotes killed, but says there has been an exemption to move coyotes in the past and would have liked to see a more detailed plan with timelines.
We are disappointed. We've been facing this issue for 5 months and it is escalating.
With the neighborhood near the rail corridor, the city says removed coyotes could come back to the area, among other problems.
There are risks with trapping, and those risks are dogs, children, people.
We will continue to work on this so that residents can feel safe in their community and that the city is well prepared to manage these situations.
The city says if aversion techniques by the new company don't work, it will look at euthanizing coyotes. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Well, there's some ancient history on the auction block in Alaska. An auction house is selling the skull of a cave bear that's believed to be 60,000 years old. This bear is believed to have been a herbivore despite its gigantic teeth. Now, why would it need the big teeth if it was a herbivore? Anyway, the auction company says the skull is larger than many previous ones, adding it's also in better condition. The auction for this ends on Thursday. And an overdue book has finally been returned to UBC's library 64 years after it was signed out.
I've said that I had taken it out, that I thought it was a light year ahead of anything else. I didn't feel bad about keeping it on account of it had only been taken out once previously, and I really, really valued it.
So Robert Murray was a second-year student when he signed Camping and Woodwork out from the library. The 83-year-old says a medical scare inspired him to finally send it back, along with a $100 check saying why it was so late. Murray is calling it a treasure and that the knowledge that he gained from the book helped to save his life and the lives of his sons during a camping trip that went really wrong 30 years ago.